we've got the frustration stuff out the way. We've spoken about all the things that have annoyed us, and I've no doubt they will crop up again at some point throughout the course of the show. But now let's look at the positivity. All right, we're going to delve in to the fights of the year from the world of boxing and from the world of MMA. We'll start with the world of boxing, shall we? Because there's one for me, Gareth, that absolutely stands head and shoulders above everything else. And the reason why I've picked it as my own personal one, even though there's others that could come into this conversation, is because of the matchup, the fighters that were involved, the pre-fight build-up, what it meant, the significance of it, and then the actual deliverance. Obviously, the fight has got to stand up. We've got to be there with our mouths wide open, going, "My days, this is an unbelievable fight." But everything just went into one big pot for one particular fight for me that absolutely worked from start to finish. People will shout at me. They'll say that they've been at better fights this year. But as I said, the reason why I've picked this particular fight is because everything went into one pot and it just worked so well and highlighted boxing at its very, very best for me. And that fight is the fight between Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano. The one at Madison Square Garden, the significance of all of that. Obviously, it's an undisputed fight. And then when you actually look at the fight and the way that it played out, it was absolutely awesome. And even now we can sit here and we can dispute the result, who won it, who didn't win it. But what we do need to see is absolutely a rematch. That, for me, everything from start to finish, build up, promotion, into the fight, is exactly what I want to see from boxing. And more of them, please, in 2023.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that. That it had everything that projected women's boxing and boxing in absolutely the right light, and it throws forward to Croke Park for 2023. It's fully set up for those women to have a rematch. It's, you know, when they were throwing their fists and throwing their gloves in the last minute of that fight, in the 10th
awesome.
round of 2 minutes. It felt like they could give more as well. So I'd like to see Croke Park in 2023, 12 2-minute rounds, if they could get that over the line. I know you advocate for 3-minute rounds as well, but yes to that fight. But I'm going to pick another fight as fight of the year. Michael Conlan and Lee Wood.
Beautiful.
Which...
That was my second, by the way.
Yeah.
That was second on my list. It was such a good fight.
Yeah. I know we probably have a couple more that we'll mention, because we'll like to mention the overseas ones and you know, trilogy fights and sequels and things that might even go to trilogies or even 4 fights. You know what I'm talking about. We'll mention it in a minute. But the shock in the fight with Michael Conlan and Lee Wood. Lee Wood being the puncher, Michael Conlan being the sleek, on his feet, southpaw who can switch as well, who's very clever, who's renowned from the Olympics for putting his finger up because people were cheating around him, who's been promoted by Bob Arum, who's a brilliant speaker, who has the tattooed rosary and crucifix around him. Michael Conlan, extraordinary fighter. He's had a great rise in the sport. He's a brilliant featherweight boxer. And he's the slick movester against Lee Wood, the heavy puncher, and he puts Lee Wood down early in the fight. And Wood is back in the first round, and he's battling his way through this storm of not knowing where he is for 2 or 3 rounds, but showing these amazing survival instincts while Conlan's leading off on him, basically. But Lee Wood is made of special stuff. He's such a deep warrior, and we've seen it already with him in a couple of fights. And he battles his way back in, and then they go toe to toe, and it's like a war. And then Conlan's down, and then they battle and battle and battle. And Conlan's knocked out in the final minutes when you're not expecting it, when he's sitting on the ropes, and his body just gives over in those championship rounds, and he crumples like clothes being dropped into a suitcase. And he just falls out of the ring with this terrible consternation, literally catatonic as he falls. He's like a brick. And Lee Wood rescues the fight in the 12th hour, if you like. It had everything. It you know, the struggles, it just had everything. So and it's set up for a rematch now, in my view, as well, because Josh Warrington's just lost to Luis Alberto, and I think Conlan has won recently and looks good, and he's got himself back. I was just it just had everything for me. I don't know.
No, yeah, I think you're absolutely right. As a fight, it is sensational from start to finish. Atmosphere as well. Probably for a lot of people, the best atmosphere, because the travelling Irish fans came over from Belfast, and obviously, had this in Nottingham where Lee Wooders had got a big football following. They segregated the crowd that night, so you had the home end and the away end. The atmosphere was sensational. The fight was absolutely dramatic, and you got a phenomenal moment. The narrative of that moment as well kind of brought us all the way back to Carl Froch against Jermaine Taylor when he needed to pull it out of the fire. And Lee Wood, obviously being another Nottingham man, managed to do that against Michael
from the same village, of Deadly.
When he was losing that fight, he managed to pull it off. It was an unbelievable finish. The reason why I went Taylor Serrano was just because of the build-up.
The enormity of the thing as well, lad. It was enormous.
Absolutely. Both brilliant fights, but just the build-up of Taylor Serrano just got me over the line with that being my fight of the year.
Can I just say as well, I think that's the one time we've had our producer Ed reporting from the event.
Yes, he did a great job as well.
He did a great job. He went up to celebrate a birthday party, and we got our producer Ed Huntley on to give us a few words afterwards, because he was there live and we were in the studio, so it was amazing.
Absolutely. I think the other fight that you were alluding to a moment or two ago was a man that we've been fans of for such a long time in Roman Gonzalez, nicknamed Chocolatito, taking on Juan Estrada for a third time. One apiece, obviously going into their third fight, the trilogy fight. And in a weird way, I actually think the fight that each man won in the first two fights, I actually thought the other person won. So there was always controversy for me when we were chatting about it. Well, did he win the first fight? Well, he definitely won the second fight. All that type of thing. So that had all the beautiful narrative coming in. We know how good these small guys are. They don't get enough credit for me in world boxing. And then they go and deliver again, but in a very different way this time, where I thought Juan Estrada was magnificent for the first half of a fight. And I'm thinking, where's Chocolatito gone? Has he got old overnight? Has it all changed? And then he just goes from second gear into fifth gear, and he's absolutely magnificent down the back end of the stretch. I personally don't think he did enough to win. I thought it was 7-5 in rounds to Estrada, but I tell you what, I'm absolutely all in on a fourth. I thought it was a brilliant fight.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, I thought Estrada edged it. 7-5. And you could watch it again. That's the point. And it's brilliant. I mean, Sugar Ray Robinson and Jake LaMotta fought, I want to say 7 times. I may be wrong here. It's a figure off the top of my head. It might have been 6. And as Jake LaMotta famously said, if I fight Sugar Ray anymore, I'm going to get diabetes. So, these two guys, their styles gel so brilliantly. They are both elite exponents. There's been an argument when Floyd Mayweather, let's not forget, was #1 pound for pound in many people's eyes. Roman Gonzalez, Chocolatito de Nicaragua, was really in the picture as arguably unbeaten as well in 48 fights or whatever he was at the time.
Yeah, it was,
Arguably, he was #1 pound for pound. And he's a very special fighter with jack-in-the-box skills. And he's carried, he's not a big guy, and he's carried his world championship capabilities up 4 weight divisions. And, the power does decrease as they go up, because they are little guys, and it's just extraordinary, the skill sets. And I think we should. I would love to have got him on the show. I mean, we've never had him on the show, and I'd love to do a little simultaneous translation while he's on. All glory to those two, and I think we will see a fourth fight. I really do.
Yeah. Fingers crossed we get fights like that pumping forward into 2023. In the world of mixed martial arts, there's been some absolute firecrackers. Obviously, I've covered a lot of the UFC, so I've been fortunate enough to be ringside, cage side, call it whatever you want, for a lot of these. But the PFL tournament has dished up some absolute barn burners as well, as has Bellator, as has Cage Warriors. So we could go all over the world with some of these fights. But there's a couple that stand out for me. Of course, the romance of Madison Square Garden, which we've just been speaking about with Katie Taylor and Amanda Serrano, is always going to be a place that has that magic dust. And when you have a fighter like Michael Chandler fighting in Madison Square Garden, he's always going to serve up something special. For those that remember our review of last year, we were talking about his fight with Justin Gaethje. Again, an absolute fight of the year contender. I think it actually won our fight of the year last year, but it's also a fight of the century contender. It was absolutely sensational. This year, he's pitched up against Dustin Poirier, a guy that's always in phenomenal fights. And once again, these two men deliver something quite special. It ends differently this time. Michael Chandler ends up getting finished. He gets submitted in the third round, whereas the one with Gaethje went the full distance. But he has moments. And he has moments in this fight where you think he's going to take out Dustin Poirier. Then Dustin Poirier has moments where you think he's going to take out Michael Chandler. It goes back and forth until Chandler makes a slight error and Poirier jumps on it. It's just a captivating 13, 14 minutes of fighting, which absolutely deserves some type of recognition on our show because it was a bar. Yeah. It was a belter.
Absolutely. And I think it also shows just how far Dustin Poirier's come as a fighter. I mean, he's got an extraordinary resume now. Obviously, the wins against Conor McGregor will always be there high up, but Chandler's a very dangerous fighter. He's like a mini Mike Tyson with a wrestler thrown in, you know. And the way he handled him was brilliant. And to finish by submission in, what was it, 2 minutes into round 3, it just showed how dangerous Dustin is if you don't get him right. I mean, he's confident. Yeah, I don't think Dustin will be long for the sport, Ad. I think, you know, he's probably only got a year or two left in him. I've known him boy to man. And I know you know him as well. And he is the diamond. He's a superb individual, a human being. And that really deserved a lot of praise. But I'm going to jump onto another one that really touched me, having done their rise from Jamaica as little boys, living in a tin shack, starving sometimes, coming to Birmingham, and really creating this renegade gym in Birmingham. Obviously, there's Fabian Edwards and others that all train with these guys in Birmingham, the brother of Leon Edwards, and Leon winning the UFC's welterweight title after waiting years and years, and you know, and it's a brilliant story. Him knocking out Kamaru Usman in the dying embers of a fight he was losing 5 rounds deep, but just there's that moment where it's that Bruce Lee moment where he's in southpaw and he's just looking to survive and get out of the fight and find the finish, the killing time, as people call it sometimes. Chris Eubank used to call it. There's that moment, and he just takes that moment with that left kick straight into Kamaru Usman's jaw, and he's gone. And there is something lifts off Edwards in the ring in that moment. It's like, I've done it. I knew I was capable of doing it, and I've done it. And you see, I do, because I've got romance about it. I think I see what the life they've lived, and they've come through all these things as little boys, as teenagers in Birmingham, through gang stuff, and learning to sacrifice and change their lives and be an example to so many other people, and not being natural promoters at what they do either, and suffering for a long time because they're not outspoken, because they can't be. That's not where they've come from. And it's just a beautiful moment for me. And I just think, for that reason, I'm calling it fight. It was still a brilliant fight, but that for me is my one, you know.